Woodland Harmony. Many, many years ago, in the age we now call the Stone Age, there lived 3 friends. A yearling, a little bird, and a clay bird. Did you know that deer fawns have white spots on their brown fur to help them camouflage in their natural environment, protecting them from predators? I thought they were just beauty marks to make them even cuter than they would be without the spots. These white spots usually start to disappear around the age of 3 to 4 months, but some spots can remain for a longer time, as was the case with our deer in the story. Our young deer already had small antlers, often perched upon by his bird friends, while at the same time he was still adorned with white spots. He was the most beautiful deer in the entire forest. The little bird looked a bit like his friend. She also had a white chest and brown feathers, and she could sing very beautifully. But she started singing quite early. Often the sun hadn't even begun to rise, and she was already singing. The deer always wanted to sleep in later, but the bird was eager every morning to meet her friends, so every morning she woke them from their sleep with her song, which was beautiful, but also very loud. She always wanted to be first in everything. She wanted to fly the fastest among the birds, sing the most beautifully, be the prettiest, and be the most loved. The clay bird was a man-made object, fired in a kiln, and was also brown, but she did not have a white chest. She was a bit more clumsy compared to the little bird, and was always the last to wake up in the morning among the 3. They lived a delightful life, surrounded by a meadow brimming with flowers and tall trees adorned with leaves of every color. They had everything they needed. The grass was lush and delectable. The spring water was crystal clear and refreshing, and the area was free from predators and rarely visited by humans. These friends had all the time in the world to play and enjoy their days together. Each morning, after waking up and having breakfast, they would dive into their playful adventures, running and laughing until the afternoon. Then, they'd pause for a hearty lunch, followed by a cozy nap under the shade of the colorful trees. Revitalized, they would resume their games until the sun began to set. In the evening, they gathered for dinner, sharing stories and giggles. After their dinner, it was story time. Each night, one of them would take a turn to tell a tale, enchanting the others with their imagination. With hearts full of joy and heads full of stories, they would drift off to sleep, eager for another day of fun and friendship. One day, the little bird had an idea. What if they had a competition between her and the clay bird? The yearling would be the judge, and to make the competition fair, he would also decide what the challenges would be. They all agreed. It seemed like a fun game. The deer told them to gather 100 small stones, because each challenge would be scored with these stones, like points, so that at the end, the one with the most stones would win. So they did just that. The birds collected 100 stones, and the competition could begin. The first challenge was simple. They had to sing. The real bird immediately began to chirp rapidly and beautifully, trilling, playing scales with a repertoire of beautiful and varied melodies. Everything she knew how to sing was on display. She showcased her brilliant talent for singing. Then came the turn of the clay bird. She, on the other hand, knew nothing about singing, neither beautifully nor poorly, not at all. But an idea struck her. She said she knew a saying from her grandparents, which goes like this: "A good word is silver, and silence is golden." Inspired by this proverb, she said that singing is silver and silence is golden. Therefore, she hoped to receive the points she deserved for her silence. The deer and all those present, as more animals had gathered to enjoy the competition, burst into laughter upon hearing what the clay bird had said, marveling at how cleverly she had resolved this challenge. In this round, the real bird received many points, but the clay bird also earned some points for her clever response. Next came the second round, the flying challenge. The real bird immediately soared up and down, performing aerial pirouettes akin to those of ballerinas and male dancers on stage today. There was no doubt that she knew how to fly well, and she was applauded by the audience. Then came the turn of the clay bird. She did not know how to fly at all, but once again, an idea struck her. She asked two spectators to hold out a branch as if it were a bow. She perched in the middle of the branch, and when she signaled, the two spectators were to release the branch. And so they did, and the clay bird was catapulted from the branch as if shot from a bow, reaching tremendous speed. She also performed a few rapid pirouettes in the air before landing on the ground. There was no need to worry. She did not break upon landing because the grass was dense, and there were plenty of flowers, each softer and more fragrant than the last, so the landing was pleasant, and the clay bird was unharmed. However, being a bit clumsy, instead of landing on her feet like agile gymnasts, she landed on her head, tail up, which caused everyone to burst into laughter again. But this time she was applauded more than the real bird. She lost points for the comical landing, but because she had a higher speed than the real bird and also performed pirouettes, they both earned equal points in this round. Then came the third challenge, camouflage. They had to blend in as much as possible. The real bird settled on the jury, meaning on the deer, because she also had white spots and a white chest. Otherwise, she was brown, so it was quite a good idea that she settled on the deer. The only thing that could be criticized was that her white spots were smaller than the deer's, but that could only be observed up close, so she received quite a lot of points. Then came the turn of the clay bird. She settled on a path trodden by people who went into the forest for wood, where there was no grass, only soil. Since she was made of clay, she blended in perfectly there. No one could have camouflaged better. Therefore, in this challenge, she earned more points than the real bird. Various competition tests followed, sometimes won by the real bird, other times by the clay bird. But as the sun began to set, and the competition had to come to an end, the deer announced the final challenge, which went like this.
Since you are all friends and we all know how much you love each other, think carefully about what gift you would give to the other if you could give them anything you wanted today. The one who thinks of a more beautiful gift will receive more points. So, think carefully. After you have thought about it, choose 3 animals from the audience to whom you will whisper your answer so that we have witnesses who know what you were thinking, and no one can say later that you changed your mind. After both of you have whispered your answers to the animals chosen from the audience, they will say them out loud for everyone to hear what they heard from each of you, and I will decide how many points each of you deserves.
If you were in the bird's place, what would you think? But let's see how the competition ended. Both whispered something to the 3 animals chosen by them from the audience, after which they told everyone what they heard from each. What do you think the real bird said? She said that the most beautiful gift she could give to the clay bird today was to give her all the points she received in the competition and let her be the winner. And what do you think? What did the clay bird think? Let me tell you, exactly the same thing, to give her points to the real bird and let her win the competition. So, obviously, for this test, they received equal points. But because it was already late and everyone had to go to dinner and then go to bed, the jury announced the result of the competition. A tie for the 2 birds. Actually, I can tell you that the deer didn't even count the points throughout the competition. He was so amused by the spectacle offered by the 2 birds that he decided from the start to give them an equal result at the end, so that the next day the competition could continue, hence the fun. For them, the competition was a big game where they got to know each other better and created even stronger bonds than they had before. With this final result, both the competitors and the audience agreed, which, among other things, it must be said, had become very large by the end of the day, as many spectators had gathered. So, in conclusion, we can say that it wasn't a fair and just competition, but great fun for everyone, which was the most important thing for them. Happy but a little tired, they bid farewell to the audience and went to eat their well-deserved dinner and discuss their adventure of the day. Here ends my story for today, but I invite you to listen to some truths about deer and about the clay bird that inspired our tale. Deer do not actively build shelters like animals that live in burrows or nests, for example. Instead, they naturally seek shelter in environments that provide them with protection and camouflage. For instance, forests and thickets, bushes and dense vegetation, clearings and forest edges, and wooded areas with fallen trees. Deer fawns are often born with white spots on their brown fur. These spots aid in their camouflage in the natural environment, protecting them from predators. The white spots usually start to fade as the fawns grow, around the age of 3 to 4 months, but some spots may persist longer. In male deer, antlers typically begin to develop at around 1 year of age. Antlers are more prominent and developed in male deer, and this process of antler growth repeats annually as antlers shed and regrow each year. New antlers grow rapidly, reaching their final size and shape within a few months. This annual cycle of antler shedding and regeneration is characteristic of deer and other cervid species.
Regarding the clay bird, we can say that it is a real object. Such small clay pieces resembling various animals or even humans were molded by humans in large numbers towards the end of the Stone Age, in the period known as the Neolithic. Exactly what they were used for remains a mystery to this day, but what makes some of them very special is the fact that inside them, pieces of burnt human skulls have been found. This leads us to speculate about their purpose, reflecting the religious sentiments of Stone Age humans in the face of death. As writing did not yet exist during that period, such information is particularly valuable if we want to understand how our ancestors once lived and what they thought about the world. Thank you for your attention, and I invite you to listen to the next story.